The last time I visited the piece of land my father sold, someone else's house was standing on it. A tall fence surrounded the property. Fresh paint covered the walls. Children were running around the compound, chasing a football across the yard. The place looked alive. I stood across the road for several minutes watching them. Nobody there knew me. Nobody knew why I had stopped. Nobody knew that before the fence, before the house, before the children, that land had belonged to my father, or that it had once been the most important thing he owned. As I stood there, I remembered the day he bought it. I remembered how proudly he carried the documents home. I remembered the way he spread the papers across the dining table while my mother smiled beside him. I remembered the dreams attached to that land, and I remembered the hospital bill that took it away. Most people think the worst thing a medical emergency can do is kill someone. I used to think that too. Then, one hospital bill nearly destroyed my family. My name is Daniel. I grew up in Enugu in a family that was neither rich nor poor. We survived. That was probably the best way to describe us. My father worked as a civil servant. My mother sold fabrics and clothing materials from a small shop. We never had luxury, but we had stability. School fees were paid, food was available, rent was never late, and in Nigeria, stability is something many families spend their entire lives chasing. My mother was the heart of our home. She remembered everything: birthdays, school meetings, doctor appointments, favorite meals, family gossip. If something important happened in our family, my mother remembered it. My father earned most of the money, but my mother was the person who made our family feel like a family. I never imagined there would come a day when we would sit in a hospital discussing how much her life was worth. The first sign came on a Wednesday morning. My mother complained about a headache. Nobody took it seriously, not even her. She blamed stress. The Christmas season was approaching. Business at her shop had become busy. Customers were buying fabrics for weddings, church programs, and holiday celebrations. She had barely slept. My father suggested she stay home. She laughed. Will the bill stay home too? That was my mother. Even when she was tired, she kept moving. She left for work. None of us knew that normal morning was about to become one of the worst days of our lives. Around noon, my phone rang. It was my younger sister. The moment I heard her voice, I knew something was wrong. She was crying. Daniel, what happened? It's Mommy. My stomach tightened. What about her? She collapsed. For a second, I honestly thought I had misheard her. Collapsed? The word didn't make sense. People got tired. People got sick. People rested. My mother wasn't supposed to collapse. I rushed out immediately. By the time I reached the shop, a crowd had gathered outside. Several people were standing around her. Someone had brought a chair. Someone else was fanning her. Another person was pouring water on her face. My mother looked confused, half-conscious, unable to speak properly. Fear hit me for the first time. Real fear, the kind that settles in your stomach and refuses to move. We rushed her to a nearby clinic. The nurses examined her briefly. Then everything suddenly became urgent. A doctor appeared. Questions were asked, forms were signed, calls were made. Then the doctor looked at us. You need to take her to a larger hospital immediately. The words terrified me. Small clinics usually try to handle everything. If they were sending her away, something was seriously wrong. The larger hospital admitted her immediately. Tests were ordered, scans were ordered, blood work was ordered. Hours passed. The waiting was unbearable. Every time a nurse walked toward us, our hearts jumped. Every time a doctor appeared, conversations stopped. My father barely sat down. He spent most of the afternoon pacing. Back and forth, checking his phone, making calls, asking questions, waiting, then waiting some more. Finally, a doctor called us into his office, my father, my sister, and me. The doctor spoke calmly, professionally, but every sentence felt like a hammer. My mother had suffered a stroke. She needed immediate treatment. The next few days would be critical. The room became very quiet. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. The doctor continued explaining treatment options, possible complications, recovery possibilities. Then he turned a document toward us. These are the estimated costs. My father adjusted his glasses. look down, read the paper, then read it again. For several seconds, he didn't speak. I looked at the figure, my chest tightened. The amount was larger than everything our family had saved, larger than the balance in my father's account, larger than anything we could access quickly. My father swallowed, then looked up. "Doctor," his voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard it. "Are you saying this is only the beginning?" The doctor nodded slowly. Yes. Nobody spoke. My father's hand remained resting on the paper, and for the first time in my life, he looked afraid. Not confused, not worried. Afraid the hospital requested an immediate deposit. Without it, certain treatments could not proceed. Suddenly, every minute had a price tag attached to it, and every minute mattered. That was the moment our family stopped thinking about tomorrow. Everything became about surviving today. That evening, my father began making phone calls. So did my sister relatives, friends, church members, former colleagues, old classmates, anybody who might help. For the next several days, our lives became a cycle of hospital visits and desperate conversations. Some people genuinely wanted to help. They sent what little they could afford. 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira. Amounts that seemed small on paper but represented real sacrifice. I still remember a woman from our church who transferred money and apologized because she wished she could send more. At the time, what she sent wasn't much, but it came from someone who actually cared. Others promised assistance that never arrived. Some stopped answering our calls entirely. A few suddenly became difficult to reach. One relative spent almost 20 minutes advising my father about financial planning. He explained how families should always prepare for emergencies, how people needed to think ahead, how unexpected situations happened every day. My father listened politely, thanked him, ended the call. The man never sent a single naira, not even one. I watched my father place the phone on the table. For a long moment, he simply stared at it. Not angry, not surprised, just disappointed. The first few days emptied our savings. Everything we had built over the years disappeared frighteningly fast. The hospital bills kept growing. Every test generated another charge. Every medication generated another charge. Every day generated another charge. No matter how much money entered, more money left. It felt like trying to stop floodwater with your hands. Then my father sold his car. It was an old vehicle. Nothing luxurious, but it had been reliable for years. It took him to work. It carried us to weddings, funerals, family visits, countless ordinary moments that now felt important. The buyer knew we were desperate. Everybody knew. People always know. He offered far less than the car was worth. My father accepted anyway. I was there the day the buyer came. The man inspected the vehicle, opened doors, checked the engine, pointed out flaws. Negotiated aggressively. My father barely argued. Eventually, they agreed on a price, a terrible price, but we needed money more than we needed fairness. The buyer counted the cash. My father handed over the keys. For a second, he kept holding them. Not long, just a second, then he let go. The buyer drove away. The sound of the engine slowly disappeared down the street. My father stood there watching until the car was gone. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. The money bought us more treatment, more medication, more hope, but only temporarily. A week later, the doctors called another meeting. My stomach tightened the moment I heard. Nothing good ever followed those meetings. We sat across from the doctor. My father looked exhausted. The dark circles beneath his eyes seemed deeper than before. The doctor explained that my mother's condition had become more complicated. Additional treatment was necessary. Additional costs followed. When we added everything together, reality became impossible to ignore. We were running out of options. That evening, my father called another family meeting. The atmosphere felt different this time. Heavier. Nobody needed to ask why. We all knew. My father sat quietly for several seconds before speaking. There is one thing left. Nobody said a word. He looked down at the floor, then back at us. The land. My younger sister immediately started crying. Not because she cared about land, because she understood what the land meant. We all did. That land was my father's greatest achievement. he had spent nearly 20 years paying for it. Small payments, slow payments, patient payments, money saved little by little. Year after year, the land wasn't just property, it was his retirement dream, the place where he planned to build his final home. The place where he imagined sitting beside my mother in old age. The place where grandchildren would visit during holidays. The place where decades of sacrifice were supposed to lead. And now he wanted to sell it. Nobody argued. Nobody tried to stop him because my mother's life was hanging in the balance. But the silence in that room felt like grief, as though we were preparing to bury something. Maybe we were. The next morning, my father asked if I wanted to visit the land with him. I said yes. We drove there in a borrowed vehicle. When we arrived, he climbed out slowly for a while. He didn't say anything. He simply stood there looking at it. The land wasn't remarkable, just an empty piece of property surrounded by other developments. But to my father, it was much more than that. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't looking at empty ground. He was looking at the future he had spent years imagining. After a while, he pointed toward one corner. That is where the house would have been. I followed his finger. He smiled faintly. Your mother wanted a small garden. His voice softened. She always said she wanted somewhere to grow vegetables. For a moment, he seemed lost inside the life he had planned. Then reality returned. The hospital, the bills, the uncertainty, the fear. He looked away and the dream disappeared. We stood there for nearly 20 minutes. Neither of us said much. There wasn't much to say. Eventually, he nodded to himself, almost as if making peace with something. Then we got back into the vehicle and left. 3 days later, a buyer appeared. The price was insulting. Everyone knew it. My father knew it. The buyer knew it. But desperation destroys negotiating power. The documents were prepared. The signatures were arranged. The sale moved quickly. People move quickly when they know you're running out of time. The day the papers were signed, I sat beside my father in the lawyer's office. He read every page carefully. Then he picked up the pen. For a second, his hand stopped moving. Just for a second. Then he signed. 20 years of sacrifice disappeared in a single signature. The money went directly to the hospital. And for the first time in weeks, we felt something that resembled hope. Maybe now we could save her. Maybe now we had bought enough time. Maybe now everything would be okay. We wanted to believe that. We needed to believe that. But the hospital wasn't finished with us yet. For the first time in weeks, we felt something that resembled hope. Maybe now we could save her. Maybe now we had bought enough time. Maybe now everything would be okay. We wanted to believe that. We needed to believe that. But the hospital wasn't finished with us yet. A few days later, another complication appeared. Then another. More treatment, more medication, more tests, more bills. The money disappeared faster than any of us expected. Every time we thought we were catching up, another expense appeared, etal. It felt like running toward a finish line that kept moving farther away. One afternoon, I walked into the billing department and watched an employee add several new charges to our account. The total increased again. I remember staring at the number, not because I was surprised anymore, because I was exhausted. We all were. At some point, fear becomes routine. That was where we were, living from bill to bill, update to update, phone call to phone call, hope to hope. Then one evening, I overheard a conversation that still makes me angry. Years later, two relatives were standing outside the hospital. They didn't know I was nearby. One of them asked whether it still made sense to keep spending so much money. The other shrugged. Nobody even knows if she will survive. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood. Then he continued. At some point, you have to be realistic. Realistic. That was the word he used. As though my mother were a business investment. As though her value could be calculated on paper. As though the woman who raised us, sacrificed for us, and loved us could somehow become too expensive to save. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to shout. Instead, I walked away because I knew if I stayed, I would say something I couldn't take back. Meanwhile, my father never stopped fighting. Every morning he arrived before visiting hours. Every evening he left after everyone else. Sometimes, nurses knew his name before they checked his identification. He practically lived there. He slept very little. He ate very little. He worried constantly. One night, I found him sitting alone in a hospital corridor. The hallway was almost empty. Most visitors had already gone home. My father sat with his hands clasped together, looking at nothing, just sitting. The strongest man I knew looked completely helpless. And that was what frightened me most. Not the bills, not the uncertainty, not even the possibility of losing my mother. The fact that my father had reached the limits of what hard work could solve. All his life, effort had been the answer. Need money, work harder. Need progress, work harder. Need a better future, work harder. But now he was facing something effort alone could not fix, and he knew it. A few days later, the doctors called us urgently. The moment I saw their faces, I knew something was wrong. My mother's condition had deteriorated. The next 24 hours would be critical. Critical, I hated that word. It sounded too small for the fear it carried. That night felt endless. Nobody slept, nobody talked much. We simply waited, prayed, hoped, feared. Every phone notification made us jump. Every nurse walking through the hallway made our hearts race. Hours passed, then more hours. Morning eventually arrived. The doctors gave us an update. There had been a slight improvement, nothing dramatic, just a small improvement. But after everything we had experienced, small felt enormous. Then another improvement came, then another and another. Slowly, unbelievably, my mother began responding to treatment, not all at once. One tiny step at a time, a finger movement, a response to her name, a weak smile, a whispered word. Each improvement felt like a miracle. Weeks later, she was finally discharged. I still remember the day she came home. Relatives filled the house, neighbors stopped by, church members visited, people smiled, people celebrated, people thanked God, and they were right to. In many ways, it was a victory. But after everyone left, reality remained. The debt remained, the loans remained, the sacrifices remained, the financial destruction remained. We had won the fight for my mother's life, but we had lost almost everything else. My younger sister postponed university for a year. My father delayed retirement. Projects stopped. Plans disappeared. The future we had imagined no longer existed, and yet nobody regretted saving her, not even once. Years passed. Life slowly improved. The debts were eventually repaid. My sister eventually graduated. I found better work. The family recovered, but recovery never meant returning to where we had been before. Some losses remained permanent. The land never came back. The retirement dream never returned. The opportunities that disappeared during those years stayed gone. One evening, long after my mother's recovery, she finally learned the full truth. She discovered the land had been sold. She discovered how much debt had accumulated. She discovered the sacrifices everyone had made, especially my father. She sat quietly for several minutes. Then she began to cry. Not the polite tears people shed in public, the kind of tears that come from somewhere deep, the kind that cannot be stopped once they start. I didn't know, she kept saying. I didn't know. My father moved closer and held her hand. You don't need to apologize, but the land, you don't need to apologize. The money, you don't need to apologize. Tears rolled down her face. My father squeezed her hand gently. No piece of land is worth more than your life. She cried harder. No savings account is worth more than your life. By then, everyone in the room was emotional. Then he said something that silenced all of us. I bought that land because I wanted to spend my future with you. He paused. If selling it was what kept that future alive, then it was worth it. Nobody spoke because there was nothing left to say. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I found my father sitting outside. The compound was quiet. Only distant sounds drifted through the darkness. I sat beside him. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question I had been carrying for years. Do you regret it? He knew exactly what I meant. The land, the money, the dream, everything. He stared into the darkness for a long moment. Then he shook his head. The money was painful to lose. He paused. The land was painful to lose. Another pause. The dream was painful to lose. Then he smiled, a small smile. But watching your mother walk back into this house, his voice softened, made every sacrifice worth it. Years later, I found myself standing across the road from that land again. The same land my father had spent 20 years acquiring. The same land that was supposed to become his retirement home. The same land that disappeared because one family refused to put a price on a mother's life. Children were still playing inside the compound, laughing, running, living lives completely disconnected from ours. They had no idea what that land once meant, and that was okay, because every evening now my father still sits on a veranda, and beside him sits my mother. They talk, they argue, they laugh, they complain about politics. They discuss grandchildren, they grow old together. The land is gone, the savings are gone, the retirement dream is gone, but the woman he sold it for is still there. And looking back now, I think my father made the only decision he could have made. That hospital bill cost our family almost everything. It took savings, it took security, it took opportunities, it took a dream that had taken decades to build. But he gave us something too: more years, more conversations, more birthdays, more ordinary evenings together. When people talk about wealth, they usually talk about money. I understand why money matters. My family learned that the hard way. But whenever I think about wealth, I think about my parents sitting together on that veranda. Because wealth is not always measured by what remains in your bank account. Sometimes, wealth is measured by who is still sitting beside you years later. And every time I pass that house built on the land we lost, I no longer think about what was taken from us. I think about what stayed. Because in the end, the most expensive hospital bill our family ever received did not simply buy treatment. It bought more years with the woman we loved. And knowing what I know now, my father would have paid that price 1,000 times over.